Welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. Today, once again, we have Kittu Reddy with us for the Ideal of Human Unity, Chapter 12. Namaste, Kittu. This is a new chapter we're beginning.
Yes, it is the prelude to nation building. So it is called the ancient cycle of pre-national empire building leading to the modern cycle of nation building. So I'll read it. We'll go slowly. We have seen that the building of the true national unit. Now, before we proceed further, we have to be very clear in our mind that when we are speaking here of nation, we are speaking of nation state. A nation is a psychological entity which might not have a central government and an authority to control. When that authority is created, then it becomes a nation state. So when he is writing here the cycle of nation building, India was 5,000 years back a nation in the cultural sense, psychological sense, but it became a nation state only permanently after the British came, right? So here he is using the word nation, by which he means really nation state. That is a modern term. We have seen that the building of the true national unit was a problem of human aggregation left over by the ancient world to the medieval. The ancient world started from the tribe, the city-state, the clan, the small regional state, all of them minor units living in the midst of other like units, which were similar to them in general type, kin usually in language, and most often are very largely in race, marked off at least from other divisions of humanity by a tendency towards the common civilization, and protected in that community with each other and in their diversity from others by favorable geographical circumstances. He's giving an example, you will immediately understand. Thus, Greece, Italy, Gaul, Egypt, China, Medo-Persia, India, Arabia, Israel, all began with a loose cultural and geographical aggregation, which made them separate and distinct culture units before they could become nation units. So here, culture units is nation, and nation units is nation state, which is a modern phenomenon. Within that loose unity, the tribe, clan or city or regional states formed in the vague mass so many points of distinct, vigorous and compact unity, which felt indeed more and more powerfully the divergence and opposition of their larger cultural oneness to the outside world, but could feel also much more nearly and acutely their own divergences, contrasts and oppositions. That means they felt very clearly the difference with the outside world. But even in the inner world, the local divergences were felt more sharply because it is much closer to you, right? So where this sense of local distinctness was most acute, there the problem of national unification was necessarily more difficult, and its solution when made tended to be more illusory. Because the divergences within are much more strongly felt than the divergences without. And where the divergences were strong, it posed a big obstacle to the formation of the nation unit. And very clearly, India is a perfect example of that. Such diverse units with such distinct cultural stamps. That is why it has taken so many thousands of years to really build a solid nation state. Any questions?
So within the clans,
No, it starts with the clan, the tribe, and then ultimately it comes to a much larger unit,
yeah.
which we now call the nation.
Yeah. But within the clan, if there were divergences,
Within the clan, there are less divergences.
less.
Within the tribe, there are a little more.
Okay.
Within the city or regional state, there are still more. As the size becomes bigger, the divergences also increase, right?
Yeah.
And especially if it is culturally rich, then it increases a lot. Correct?
As an example,
India.
India.
The
Okay.
more, you see, there are 16 languages, and they are very old.
Yes.
And you don't have that problem so much in the United States or in England or in France. There might be some small languages, but not such well-developed languages like in India. So we're giving examples now. The solution was in most cases attempted to bring all these different things into one. In Egypt and Judea, it was successfully found even in that cycle of historical evolution. But in the latter instance, that means Israel, certainly, in the former probably, the full result came only by the hard discipline of subjection to a foreign yoke. Now, this is a very important thing to note, that it is usually a foreign yoke that unites the country. Again, India is a typical example. The British united India, and they conquered India so easily because we were divided. They united India for their own political and administrative purpose. But that has now become a settled fact. Right? So this importance of the foreign yoke, it is, in a sense, in a way, it's common sense. When we are fighting among ourselves internally in a family, well, it goes on. When there is a threat from outside, we all unite. So it is that foreign unification, at least temporarily. Where this discipline was lacking, where the nation unity was in some sort achieved from within, usually through the conquest of all of the rest, by one strong clan, city, regional unit, such as Rome, Macedon, the mountain clans of Persia. Rome conquered Italy. Macedon conquered Greece. And the mountain clans of Persia, they conquered Persia, right? Now see the next part. The new state, instead of waiting to base firmly its achievement and lay the foundations of national unity deep and strong, proceeded at once to overshoot its immediate necessity and embark on a career of conquest. So you see now this is again sound common sense when you look afterwards. When you build a unit, you must first consolidate it. And if you don't consolidate it and move on to the next one, when that one collapses, this one also collapses because it is not consolidated. So always the process has to be gradual. Go one step, consolidate, create a firm unity, then build up, and this can be applied even to business. I build a small business house. Before it is nicely settled, I enlarge, and then I enlarge, and then the whole thing will collapse and you will come back to square zero. So, step by step, you have to move, even in nation building.
Does Sri Aurobindo give examples where it failed?
all these, Rome, Macedon, and Persia, they did not become united. Italy did not become united in the ancient times.
Okay.
Italy became united in 1865, around that period. See, Britain and France became united much earlier, 2 centuries earlier at least, right? Because when the Roman Empire collapsed, Italy collapsed, it went back to city-states. And these city-states had a very vivid cultural life. But they became the biggest obstacles to unity. Get it?
How much did the Catholic Church factor into this?
To a certain extent, but once the age of reason came in, they still remained city-states, and another 300 years it took for Italy to become united. And there are three persons, Cavour, Mazzini and Garibaldi. England and France became united, with the church pressure being one of the factors. So, this is important, the next sentence. Before the psychological roots of the national unity had been driven deep, before the nation was firmly self-conscious, irresistibly possessed of its oneness, and invincibly attached to it, the governing state, impelled by the military impulsion which had carried it so far, attempted immediately to form by the same means a larger empire aggregate. So since they had conquered, Rome had conquered Italy, before consolidating Italy it went on and on and on. It lasted a few centuries, but when it collapsed, Rome came back to the city-states. Italy came back to the city-states. So you see, it is very sound common sense. You build, consolidate, enlarge, consolidate, enlarge, consolidate. Everywhere it is that. Right? And that is the problem of the ashram. Suppose now we take 4,000 persons. Better not consolidate solidly and create other or help others to create similar such units. But if you enlarge it too much, the fissiparous tendencies will increase in a very big way. So they have put a limit, 1300, 1320 and not more. The principle is very clear, no?
Mm-hmm.
Any question? So, and to form by the same means a larger empire aggregate, Assyria, Macedonia, Rome, Persia, later on Arabia, followed all the same tendency and the same cycle. So they all followed that. Instead of consolidating, they enlarged. That is why the nation unit could not be formed in the ancient times. In the modern times, they waited, consolidated, and then expanded. So Britain became a nation in the 17th, 18th century, well formed, psychologically rooted. Then it expanded and built its empire. Clear, absolutely? Right. So the great invasion of Europe and Western Asia by the Gaelic race and the subsequent disunion and decline of Gaul were probably due to the same phenomenon and proceeded from a still more immature and ill-formed unification than the Macedonian. So the Gauls, they made an empire, like Alexander made his empire. And you see, Alexander, almost as soon as he died, the whole empire broke within 2 months. Right? The Gaulish Empire also became large, but then when it collapsed, the whole thing collapsed again. So the sum is this: all became the starting points of great empire movements before they had become the keystone of securely built nation unities. So it is a management principle. Go slowly, step by step.
I remember Mother saying that begin very small and slowly and establish something and then let it grow.
And let it grow, not try to make it grow.
Right.
That means it has to be an inner movement.
Yes.
And this should apply to all the centers.
Yes.
So these empires, therefore, could not endure. Some lasted longer than others because they had laid down firmer foundations in the central nation unity, as did Rome in Italy. Now see the next sentence, wonderful. In Greece, Philip the first unifier, Philip was the father of Alexander, made a rapid but imperfect sketch of unification, the celerity of which had been made possible by the previous and yet loser Spartan domination. Celerity means speed. Because Sparta had already somewhat united, it was much easier for Philip to unite. And had he been followed by successors of a patient talent, rather than by a man of vast imagination and supreme genius, this first practical outline might have been filled in, strengthened, and an enduring work achieved. Now see the next sentence, then I'll come back. One who first founds on a large scale and rapidly needs always as his successor a man with the talent or the genius for organization rather than an impetus for expansion. So then you consolidate. Genius for organization and not for expansion. Alexander, instead of waiting and consolidating Greece, expanded. When he died, within a month, the whole thing came back to square zero, Greek city-states. So it's a very sound, as I said, management principle almost. A Caesar followed by an Augustus meant a work of massive durability, because Augustus was the administrative genius. What he has got, I am satisfied. I will run it well. Right? A Philip followed by an Alexander, an achievement of great importance to the world by its results, but in itself a mere splendor of short-lived brilliance. So this is very important. Durability is not there. He conquered, he spread Greek ideas, he took ideas from abroad, and it had cultural impact. But Greece did not last.
You know, I'm sure the story of
The
these disciples asking Sri Aurobindo who he was previously. You know all of that.
no,
Augustus Caesar was one, that he would not say no.
but he didn't say yes also. He didn't
He
say the
didn't
name.
say yes,
Yeah.
but he said no to so many. Only Leonardo
And Augustus.
and Augustus Caesar.
And mother was Mona Lisa.
Yes,
That is a
yes.
So Rome, to whom careful nature denied any man of commanding genius until she had firmly unified Italy and laid the basis of her empire, was able to build much more firmly. See the next sentence. Nevertheless, she founded an empire not as the center and head of a great nation, but still as a dominant city, using a subject Italy for the springing board to leap upon and subjugate the surrounding world. It is not called the Italian Empire. It's called the Roman Empire. So when the empire collapsed, back to Rome. If it was an Italian empire, when the Roman Empire collapsed, back to Italy. So a city-state became the center of an empire, while Britain was a nation that became the center of an empire. That's why it lasted so long. Good management thinking, no? Therefore, she had to face a much more difficult problem of assimilation, that of nation nebula, and formed her inchoate cultures different from her own, before she had achieved and learned to apply to the new problem the art of complete and absolute unification on a smaller and easier scale. Before she had welded into one living national organism, no longer Roman but Italian, the elements of difference and community offered by the Gallic, Latin, Umbrian, Oscan, and Greco-Apulian factors in ancient Italy. If she had organized and kept these together and then moved on, it would have been much more secure. So when the empire collapsed, Rome was dominated by the church first, then the city-states formed, and these city-states, although very culturally productive, were the biggest obstacles to unification of Italy. So it was in 1865, more than 200 years after Britain and France, Spain and Portugal, that Mazzini, Cavour and Garibaldi helped in forming Italy. So I feel that this book is also very important for management. If you pick out things, you can easily make a compendium of management instructions. Therefore, although our empire endured for several centuries, it achieved temporary conservation at the cost of energy, of vitality and inner vigor. It accomplished neither the nation unit nor the durable empire unity. And like other ancient empires, it had to collapse and make room for a new era of true nation building. So again, you have to start the new era of true nation building. So the important thing is graduality, build, consolidate, build, consolidate, build, consolidate, then move on to empire. So this is true for business, this is true for a school. Don't start with 500, right? Start with, like our school. I put up all the list of all the names of those who were there in 1943. 42 or 43. Of whom 18 are alive, the rest are all dead. So from 42, little by little, mother increased. Then it shot up to 850. It became very difficult to manage because our way of teaching is very much more individual. And Pranav categorically told mother, I am not going to allow. So the school was divided into two because some were not in the playground. So they had to make alternate arrangements for their playground. Then ultimately, under pressure from mother, they fixed up a number, 550. Pranav agreed to that. Then there became one school and one group. Today, after the mother is gone, and if we want to keep our special system of individual contact with the student, we have reduced it to 400. Between 400 and 410. We can increase it with the infrastructure that we have. But the principle that we are following of treating students individually becomes almost impossible. So today morning I had an individual class. Yesterday I had 2 individual classes. Tomorrow I have classes of 2, 2 and 5. Right? But never more than 8. So this is a very important principle for everything. Build, consolidate. Build, consolidate. Enlarge again, consolidate. But don't go fast, because when you collapse, everything will collapse.
And what if the ashram enlarged?
What of the?
The ashram school, if it enlarged.
If it is large, if we had 850 students, with the infrastructure that we have got, we can handle it. But our methods of teaching will have to change. 20 students in a class. You can't have interaction personally. Of course, now as somebody told me, that even if there are 20 students and you are prepared to give them all a computer, then we can have 2 types of classes. One where the teacher is talking for 15 minutes. The rest, they are working on their own. If they have a question, they raise. Then again I answer to all or only to him, depending on the question. So technology makes it possible. But the important thing is that you have to consolidate. And this is a little difficult in the playground. You see, if somebody has got a back injury, 2 persons, especially ladies, you have to treat them differently. It is not the same exercises that you have to give them. You have to know the nature, the cause, the background, right? And that means personal attention. If you have 700, 800, then all of them will have to do the same thing. So you have to combine some things all together and some things individually or in very small groups. The ashram school certainly has followed that principle quite faithfully. All right. So shall we do one more paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay. It is necessary to emphasize where the error lay. The administrative, political, economic organization of mankind in aggregates of smaller or greater size is a work which belongs at its basis to the same order of phenomenon as the creation of vital organisms in physical nature. Vital organism means living organisms. It uses, that is to say, primarily external and physical methods governed by the principles of physical life energy intent on the creation of living forms, although its inner object is to deliver, to manifest and bring into secure working a supra-physical, a psychological principle latent behind the operations of the life and the body. See, take it to an individual. An individual is born. That means he's got a physical structure. But it is not the physical structure that is important. It is the supra-physical structure that is important. That means the body is only a kind of house which has the vital, the mental, and further development, the spiritual. That is the main thing, and not the body. So similarly, in a collectivity is formed by physical means, but its meaning is supra-physical. If it is business, it is a vital organization. If it is a school, it is a mental organization. If it is an ashram, it is a spiritual organization. That is the main thing, right? And not So when you write the history of the ashram, you can write down all the buildings and all these outer details. There is no value. The real thing is the psychological contribution. And that is where you have to concentrate on Sri Aurobindo and the mother and those who have contributed closely by their contact with Sri Aurobindo and the mother. All right? So this is very applicable for the Sri Aurobindo centers outside. The center outside is a physical structure, a building, a few rooms where you meditate. But what is the purpose? Supraphysical. If that is missing, then this is of no value. I can very well use that building for something else, no? So that is the essential thing. So similarly, you and me and all of us, all human beings, we are a physical embodiment of something supraphysical. Right? So when people talk about you or him or her, we are not concerned about her body. We remember something else, something which is characteristic of that person. Okay? So to build a strong and durable body and vital functioning for a distinct, powerful, well-centered and well-diffused corporate ego is its whole aim and method. Replace the word corporate ego by individual ego, it is exactly what. And that makes your personality. That makes the personality of the group. Right? In this process, as we have seen, first smaller distinct units in a large loose unity are formed. These have a strong psychological existence and a well-developed body and vital functioning. But in the larger mass, the psychological sense and the vital energy are present but unorganized and without power of definite functioning. And the body is a fluid quantity or a half nebulous or at most a half fluid, half solidified mass, a plasm rather than a body. This has in its turn to be formed and organized. A firm physical shape has to be made for it, a well-defined vital functioning, and a clear psychological reality, self-consciousness, and mental will to be. So the ashram has got its physical structure, the main building and all the other buildings, all painted grey. Somebody asked me why grey. I said, I don't know, Mother chose it. Then it has a vital life, it has a mental life, but its essence is a spiritual life. Club of Pondicherry has got a physical being. It has a vital being. It might have a little bit of a mental, there is no spiritual, but it is essentially for enjoying, having fun, etc., etc., etc. Right? So all bodies are created like that. But the body is only the body. The real thing is supra-physical. It can be vital, it can be mental, it can be spiritual.
Any questions?
Anything to ask?